What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Fantasy Puck video. Today's video is going to be my goalie rankings and tiers. So I'm going to tier them from S to D tier. These are my own personal rankings based on Yahoo default scoring, goals against, wins, saves, save percentage, goals against average, all take into account. These are my top 20 goalies going into the season. There are a lot of variables. There's a lot of variance with goaltenders, a lot of risk. And ranking them is never going to be easy just because it's so hard to predict the outcome of goaltenders. But there are definitely some goaltenders that I'm really high on this season, and I'm going to touch on them in this video. So to get started, fairly simple. The S tier, it's going to be Mr. Andrei Vasilevskiy. Still my favorite goalie going into fantasy this season. He is just such an elite goalie, and he has the least risk out of any goalie in fantasy. He's been good for the last 6-7 years. He's been a top-end pick in fantasy every single year. If you're in those goals against average and save percentage leagues, he's going to be very, very good. I would take him as the first goalie off the board over Igor Shesterkin. I know that Vasilevskiy right now is currently dropping in drafts to the 4th drafted goalie. To me, I just think he's the safest goalie. He's done it for so long. The only downside is Tampa is in a difficult division, and Tampa is just not as good as they used to be. But I still think there's a lot of upside. Their core is still there. Kucherov put up over 100 points last year. Points scored 50 goals. Sergachev's taken a big step forward this season. So I love Vasilevskiy. He is my first goalie off the board in the S tier. Second goalie, like I already mentioned, Igor Shesterkin of the New York Rangers. What a goaltender Igor Shesterkin is. He and Vasilevskiy are interchangeable in that top spot. Both of them are going very early in drafts. This year, not the first round because there's so many high-scoring forwards. He's actually dropping in the mid-second round. For me, I don't like drafting goalies early, but if you're in those goals against average and save percentage leagues, these two goalies can easily win you the week by themselves. If you implore my one team goalie strategy, these are two goalies you definitely, if you draft them early, probably take their backup just because of how good the teams are. Now, the third goalie off the board is Alexander Georgiev. For those who watched Fantasy Puck last season, I was so high on Pavel Francouz. I thought he would take over the net. I thought Georgiev was unproven. Now he's proven. He is an S tier goalie on an S tier team. Colorado Avalanche are easily a top 3 team in the NHL. He played a lot of games last season, and Francouz has health problems, so it's Georgiev's net to lose. He is in line for 60-plus starts. We have him projected for 62 starts this season and being the most winning goalie in fantasy with 40 wins. Now, we're moving on to the A tier, and my 4th-ranked goalie, UC Saros, a guy that I am very, very surprised by his ADP right now. He is falling considerably in drafts at about ADP 63. It's still early. I'm recording this August 17th. It's still a little early for the ADP rankings. They're updating every day. He moved from 70 to 63 over the last few days, but still, I love UC Saros. He is one of the most elite goaltenders in all of hockey. Now, I know what you're thinking right now. Nashville's just not really a good team, and I get that. Johansson left, filled in with Ryan O'Reilly. Yossi took a little bit of a step back. Forsberg was hurt. They lost Duchesne. Lots of underlying factors there. They have some young rookies that are coming up this season. I think if you're in a league that counts save stats, he is a top-end goalie. He's going to get so many shots against. He's a goalie that will go out, face 45 shots, let in 3 goals, give you a 42 save loss or 42 save win. I really like Saros. I really like his floor, and I think he has a really high ceiling, and he can pop off for a Vezina year at any time. Moving on, the third goalie on our list, Jake Oettinger. Very, very, very close to an S-tier goalie. I think we need to see a little bit more out of Oettinger. It seemed like near the end of the season, he was letting in 3-4 goals a game. He had a little bit of a bad stretch down the run just because he hasn't really had a full season yet in his career, and that was his first one. There were a lot of question marks for me as well as just a hockey fan going down the stretch that Wedgwood, I think, should have had a few more of those starts than Oettinger, which I think would have set him up a little bit better for the playoffs. You saw the struggles in playoffs. He got pulled a few times. He wasn't the best in the Minnesota series, but I still think there's a lot of upside there. There's a little bit of risk. Ottinger, for me, would probably be the first goalie I take in drafts. It really depends on where he falls to. But in that early third round, I think I'm fine taking him there. I'm really high on this Dallas Stars team this year. But Jake Ottinger comes in as my 5th best goalie off the board, with 62 starts this season and 37 wins, the second most winning goalie in fantasy. The 6th goalie, to no surprise, in the A tier is Ilya Sorokin. The only reason why he's not in that S tier, he is very, very similar to Andrei Vasilevsky. I just think he won't get as many wins as Vaz will this season. Vaz, we have projected for 36 wins this season, with Sorokin at 31. So a 5-win difference. It's not really significant, but for those in the Roto Leagues, wins, save percentage, goals against average, he may have, a 930 save percentage, a 210 goals against average, but 1 win, 2 losses. The Islanders team just doesn't really score enough. They don't really give him enough run support, for my baseball fans out there, or goal support. But Sorokin is a borderline S tier goaltender. Same with the other 2 goalies in this tier. I just think he falls a little bit lower than some of the other goalies based on New York Islanders' lack of scoring. Moving on, the next goalie on my list is Linus Ullmark of the Boston Bruins. What a good season. He was a league winner last year. In my league with most of the Fantasy Puck members, I ended up drafting him in the 12th round. He paid off huge dividends for me down the stretch, getting a ton of wins. The goals against average and save percentage were numbers that we haven't seen in a very long time in the NHL. This Boston team was very good last year. They're going to get a little bit worse with Patrice Bergeron now leaving. No Taylor Hall, no Foligno, no Krejci as well. I think the issue with him not being the actual, he's a 1A, 1B with Swayman, and Swayman is in here as well, which is a little bit concerning that both Boston goalies are in here, is that if you're in leagues that require a lot of volume, a lot of saves, he's just not going to get there for you because we only have him projected for 49 starts this season. That may be a little bit on the lower side, but near the end of the season, Boston was starting Ullmark Swayman until playoffs, and they ended up losing in that first round. I did think Swayman should have had a start in that playoff run, but regardless, Ullmark, his lack of starts is what really separates him from the S and A tier goaltenders. Moving on to the next goaltender, we have Mr. Philip Gustafsson. He is going to go in this B tier. There just isn't enough proven games for Gustafsson. He only had 34 starts last season. I know Chris is a little bit lower on Gustafsson due to his lack of starts. I completely agree with that. There's a lot of risk there. It's his net to lose right now. Fleury's not going to be getting starts. I love Gustafsson. I don't like his ADP. I thought he'd be a little bit sneakier in drafts. He's now in the ADP 55 range, which to me is a little bit too early given the risk. But he is a B-tier goaltender on a really good team. They should be putting in a lot of goals. They should be allowing enough shots for him to get save volumes for you. But for me, I think there's too much risk here. He doesn't belong in the A tier. And this Minnesota team will get him wins, but his job is his to lose, and there's possibility of that. The next goaltender on this list, let me find him. Where is he? Mr. Connor Hellebuyck. You're probably thinking he is an A-tier goalie. He had a very, very hot start last year and really cooled down. The Winnipeg got a lot worse. They lost their line 2 center, Pierre-Luc Dubois. I just don't think they're the team they used to be. There's a lot of risk on this team. A lot of people are saying Scheifele might be going over to the Bruins. I think if Winnipeg was a little bit better, more of a playoff contending team, you can see all the goalies on here, maybe aside from Saros, are all on very strong teams, like top 10, top 12 teams in the league. With Connor Hellebuyck, I can see Winnipeg being a bottom 10 team, and I know we have some Winnipeg Jets fans, but the point of this channel is for me to talk about what I like and what I think this season. For me, Hellebuck's going to get you a lot of starts. We have him projected for 62 starts, under 30 wins, and the save volume will be there. But I think there's a lot of risk drafting him. He's going really high in drafts because of how his season was last year. But his cold stretch have me a little worried. I know I was battling in first place in one of my leagues against Connor Hellebuyck, and in the playoff week, I ended up winning because he had a little bit of a blunder. So for me, Hellebuyck, B-tier goalie, probably not on my draft list this season. I think I would rather draft someone with a little bit more value. Moving on to my next goalie, someone that is completely falling in drafts. This is crazy to see. Jacob Markstrom, he is close to an A-tier goalie for me. Now, this is what I want to say about the Calgary Flames players, and you're going to hear me preach this if you listen to more videos. This entire team is on sale right now in drafts. Yeah, Jacob Markstrom isn't even in the top 30 goalies for ADP on Yahoo right now after being drafted early or late second, early third round last season, coming off the best season of his career in Calgary. I like Markstrom this season. I think he's due for a huge bounce back year. All of his numbers were way below his career average. He knows he played bad. He's going to work hard this offseason. This Flames team is solid. They have Lindholm as their 1C, and they also have Nazem Kadri as their 2C. Not to mention their completely full decor of solid two-way defensemen. They have Chris Tanev, they have Weegar, they have Rasmus Anderson, they have Hannafin, they have Shillington, who's also impressive. Very good decor. They're going to allow a lot of weak chances, which I think Markstrom was giving up more weak chances last season than he has in his career. And Jonathan Huberdeau now understands the system. Daryl Sutter is out. No more Trevor Lewis and Brett Ritchie on that top line. No more Lucic skating down the wing at 1 kilometer an hour. I like Markstrom this season. He's probably going to be my highest drafted goalie given ADP. I think in terms of all these goalies, he's actually the lowest ADP. So I love Markstrom this season. I think he's in line for 60 plus starts. We have him projected for 33 wins, a 912 and a 259. Really, really good for Markstrom this season. I think he can be a league winner. But for me, he's in the B tier because there is some risk given his season last year. Moving on to the next goalie, we have Thatcher Demko. Another goalie that's going to surprise some people that I have him here, but I love Demko. He is very similar to UC Saros, where he's going to get a ton of volume on Vancouver. We just don't know how good Vancouver is going to be, right? And Demko had some injury history last year. He was on and off, so there is risk there. But I think he is the workhorse in Vancouver. They traded Markstrom. They knew he was going to be the number one. He just had a bunch of setbacks last year. He couldn't get healthy. I love Markstrom going into the season. I think, or Demko going into the season. Him and Markstrom are going to be by far my two highest owned goalies in fantasy. I love their volume in the net, and I love their volume getting saves against. So I love Demko this season. I think he's a B tier goalie, and I think he can also be a league winner for you. Moving on to the next goalie, we have Mr. Jeremy Swayman, and he's in the B tier. I wish he's the starter in Boston. I have a friend who's a diehard Boston fan. He keeps saying one of Allmark or Swayman has to go. These two goalies are keeping their team afloat. They're both super good. The issue with Swayman is the lack of starts. It's the same thing as Allmark. But I do think he could take over the net at some point this season. He had a really bad start last year, and then down the stretch, he was one of the best goalies in the entire NHL with a sub-2 goals against average and a .930 save percentage. I like him in goals against average and save percentage leagues, but due to his lack of starts, he doesn't really do well in points leagues because he doesn't get many shots against. Before we go any further in this video, I just want to let you all know that we're hosting our own Fantasy Puck Hockey Leagues this season, exclusive to our Patreons. If you're interested in competing in a fun and active fantasy hockey leagues with myself and the rest of the Fantasy Puck community, click the link in the description below and head on over to our Patreon. If you have any questions, leave a comment in this video or join our Discord and message me directly. Let's get back to the video. The next goalie on my list is going to be Mr. Stuart Skinner, my favorite player last season. Honestly, since I've had this channel, it was probably one of my more risky takes, but probably the best take I've had. I said he was going to take over the net last season. I said that Jack Campbell was going to be frustrated in Edmonton with all the shots against coming from Toronto, where he literally faced 25 shots a game and had a .915, .920 save percentage. Went over to Edmonton, struggled with their defensive zone, right? They give up a lot of chances, a lot of high danger chances. And Stuart Skinner, I felt, was a very capable backup, and he took over the net pretty early on. I remember watching the first game against Calgary, and he let up, I think, 6 goals, Campbell, if my mind is correct, because I haven't really watched or followed hockey in the last little bit because we're in the off season. But Stuart Skinner here, very good goaltender, We have him projected to have about 65% of the starts this year. I still think Campbell's a little bit of a threat, and that's why he's not in the A tier. But Edmonton should win a ton of games this season. There's a chance that he gets 50 to 60 starts. But there is risk because he's never really started a full season in the NHL. But for me, he's still a B tier goalie that possesses some risk. The next goaltender, we're going down to the C tier, is going to be Mr. Freddie Anderson. I wish he was healthy because this Carolina team is so good. And if he did have some really positive health this season, he could easily end up in the A or S tier just because of how good Carolina is. Brandt is a very capable backup. Kochetkov, I struggle with saying his name. You guys should give it to me in the comments if I said it wrong. Both very capable backups, and they're both ready to step in the net when, or it's not if, it's when Freddie Anderson gets injured. It makes Kyle Dubas look very good by not signing Campbell and not signing Freddie, because Campbell struggled and Freddie can't stay healthy. So there's a little bit of a mix there. But Freddie Anderson, I think he is a C tier goalie. There's just a lot of risk this year with him. And speaking of a lot of risk, I don't want to put him here, but I'm going to. Samsonov is very, very close to a D tier goalie for me. I think he's a bust this year. So we did our first mock draft. Chris knows he's been watching this video, waiting for me to talk about it. Chris took him 60th overall. I think he is a must avoid this season for a few reasons, very similar to what happened with Jack Campbell. Samsonov has never played a full season in his career. His most starts was 44 starts 2 years ago. Last year, he literally couldn't stay healthy the entire season. I felt like every single time he moved laterally, he tweaked something. The trainer was coming out because his knee hurt. Maybe it was a bad season. Maybe he was unlucky. But for me, that's a concern. So I'm not on Samsonov at all this season. I think the Leafs are easily a top 5 team in the whole NHL. I think Joseph Woll can take over the net this year, and you're going to see him in my must draft goalies video. People seem to be on Joseph Woll this season. I might have said Joseph Woll this season. But I think Samsonov's a huge risk. I think Woll takes the net over. Leafs fans, let me know in the comment section below what you think about that take. Woll started the most important games of the season last year against Florida when Samsonov got hurt. Made 40 saves in one of their games, although they lost. It's a rookie goalie stepping in the biggest, most nerve-wracking hockey market. I'm not going to call it Leafs fans, but yeah. So Samsonov, C tier, potential D tier for me. Not a fan at all. Moving on, Devin Levi of the Buffalo Sabres. I think he takes the net over this season. He already has a lot of eyes on him, but we have him projected for 49 starts. It's really, really hard to project young rookie goalies. Eric Comrie is not really a problem. I think Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, 6Ks, I think people call them. He is also a little bit of a threat. I think Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen was actually going to take the net over last season, but he didn't end up doing that. He struggled a little bit, went down to the minors. This is Levi's net to lose. He was Team Canada World Junior breakout goalie, one of the best goalie prospects in hockey, aside from Dustin Wolf and Jesper Wolstead. I really like Levi this season. I like the upside here. I think in this D tier, he probably has the most upside, but be careful. He's never played a full season in the NHL, and the Buffalo Sabres give up a lot of chances. The next goalie on my list, Sergei Bobrovsky of the Florida Panthers. A lot of risk with Bobrovsky too this season. He just really can't seem to stay healthy, but went on this crazy run last season in the playoffs and felt like he was unstoppable. And back to the Columbus Bobrovsky, who signed $10.5 million in Florida, which honestly didn't even look bad because they made it to the finals. They did what they wanted to do with him. But with Bobrovsky, he seems to always have a 3 goals against average and a 900 save percentage. And that's very close to what we project him for this year. The good thing about Bobrovsky is he should get a lot of volume. We have it projected for 57 starts this season, but a 287 goals against average and a 907 save percentage. So in those volume leagues and the points leagues, he's good. We just don't know what we're going to get out of Bobrovsky. He's a complete wild card every season. Moving on to the next goalie, Tristan Jarry of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He is in the C tier of the top 20 goalies. I'm going to keep him here for now. He's close to a D tier, but with DeSmith leaving, Nedeljkovic now in, I don't think Nedeljkovic really poses any threat to him. But the thing with Jari is health is one concern, and then he just randomly will let up 6 goals after having a shutout the night before. Like, he'll shut out Dallas and then give up 6 goals to Arizona. So there's a lot of volatility with Jari. I have a friend who's a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, and he said when he's in net, we literally have no idea if it's going to be 6-1 or if we're going to lose 6-1. So with Jari, you don't know what you're going to get. A little bit riskier, but he's on a very good Penguins team who just acquired a top-end defenseman. And maybe with the acquisition of Karlsson, I should boost him up to the B tier. But I think because we just don't know how he's going to be this year, similar to Bobrovsky with a wild card, he's in that C tier. Next up, someone that I think is really sneaky in drafts this season, but I'm going to put in the D tier because we have no idea what his health's going to be this year, and we have no idea if he's going to take over the net from Phoenix Copley. But I think Cam Talbot could be close to a league winner. It's hard to say, but just given his ADP, he's goalie 32 off the board right now. He could be very, very good. So him being in the D tier isn't bad given he's goalie 32 off the board and he is ranked 19 for me, right? So I think he has a lot of upside. I think LA is a top 7 to 10 team. It might be a little bit of a hot take, but they're very good. Brant Clark's coming up this season. Kempe had his breakout year last year. I like Kaliev, I like Byfield. So I'm definitely on Talbot this year. I know if you're in the Discord, FP Sven, yeah, he is really high on Talbot with me. So I like this LA Kings team a lot. I think they're a sneaky Stanley Cup pick. So Cam Talbot, definitely goalie I'm on. He belongs right now in the D tier with upside to finish in the B tier. Lastly, Darcy Kemper of the Washington Capitals. We don't know what we're going to see out of this team this year, but Ovi had some health concerns. Pacioretty's now there. They lost Orlov. They have Sandin. So it's going to be a little bit of an oddball season for this Washington Capitals team. They always seem to be competitive. They have just those players that have done it before, right? Like Oshie, Ovi, Kuznetsov, Karlsson. They've done it before. But with Kemper, it's just difficult on a team that may not be a 500 team this year. They may be a losing team. And for that reason, we have him projected for only 28 wins. So one of the lower in this top 20 here. But I like Kemper. I liked him a lot more when he was on Colorado, and I traded for him because I thought that he was going to sign there in my keeper league where you have to keep a goalie. And that kind of screwed me over a little bit this year. But I ended up keeping Slavin, so it worked out. But anyways, I don't mind Kemper this season. But I think he's a little bit risky, and that's why he falls in the D tier. So that concludes my goalie rankings. It's a little bit difficult making these long videos, but I really enjoy it. Let me know in the comment section below if you want to see more tiers videos. I know Chris will be doing the wingers and the defensemen, and I'm going to do my top 20 overall rankings, the centermen and the goalies. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Thank you for watching, guys. Expect more content. We're having a really big season. We're really excited for it, and I look forward to seeing everybody in the next video.